Hey everybody, welcome to Stories from the Earth.
This is episode 15, and we have titled this episode Herbal Friends, Storytime, Echinacea and Goldenseal. My name is Jennifer. I'm with my friend Ellen. And because Ellen is going to tell us, she's going to read a story that she wrote. And if you are watching on YouTube, on the Stories for the Earth YouTube channel, you will see illustrations that she has drawn to go with this story. So we're pretty excited about this. This is our story section, story week, and we're telling a story. Aha!
Seems fitting.
Yes. So, is this going to be part of a larger book with several stories in it? And then, if so, what is the title of your book and your
So the concept is Wild Child's Herbal Friends series, and I had envisioned it as, so far I've gotten 10 stories written, and I had envisioned it maybe being 10 individual, just slim little books for kids. But I mean, they could go into an anthology all together in one too, either way. I just felt like as a kid, I always liked stories that involved nature themes, and I always liked illustrations in kids' books where you could spot little there was whatever was central to the story being told, but there was also just little things tucked into the image that you could kind of spot that weren't mentioned in the story, but just fun for kids to look at. So I wanted to try to embody that sort of fun and how impressionable that nature contact through a book form can be for young kids, in a topic that there really isn't a lot of kids books out there about. If you can start them young, with the herbs and understanding, I feel like it's going to go a longer way in preventing loss of important information about such things, because humans have always, especially back before, books and internet communication, we remembered information and passed it down through stories. So this was kind of like my giving back in that sense. So the series is going to be, each story features a different plant. Some of the stories are going to include a human character known as Wild Child. And then some of the stories, like the one I'm going to tell today, the highlighted characters are the plants themselves. So it's, anthropomorphic, but, that's just great because kids have imaginations that, that can play upon. I think it personalizes a little more to make the plant itself into the character. And I do apologize. I have just started the illustration, so the entire story isn't illustrated yet, but you'll at least get to see 8 of the images completed so far. But I will be telling the entire story, even though we don't have images to go with all of it just yet.
Yes. So this is a preview.
Yes.
Of a sneak preview of this, this project. And yeah, that was the first thing. So if you'll notice, when you see the images, there are other creatures and other really things that I think a kid would really love to be like, hey, look, there's a snail over there, and there's things that you can really dive into the pictures. And I remember when I was young, that's what I loved. And also my brother had this book that he had my dad read over and over and over again. And so kids just really eat books and, really yeah.
And this is meant to be the format isn't a simple story, in the sense that it's not one that a kid would necessarily learn to read from. It's specifically meant to be more of to have that connection of being read to, because yeah, like you were saying with your dad and your brother, same here. I have such fond memories of being read to as a kid. As much as I like to read, being read to, especially by your parent, is just kind of a nice, like extra treat that can be exciting for kids, you know, to have that time to just be the captive audience, but in a way the parents sort of the captive audience too, because they're being the one held captive by the kid being made to read the story, you know. So goes both.
I mean, I always found it very comforting, but I also listened to a lot of books on tape. Still the same reason, very comforting, and I would listen to them over and over and over again. You know, it's still one of my favorite things to do. And no, there's not a lot in this subject, in this herbalism subject for kids, and adults will probably learn something too. So, you know, a way for us to all sort of get to know the plants a little bit more, and the stories help you remember things. Like,
yeah, that was what I was going for. Is I didn't want to be really direct. I didn't want to be like, if you take this plant, it does this thing, because one, that's not legal since it sounds too diagnostic and prescriptive,
right.
But also because, you know, what fun is that in terms of, you know, conjuring imagination? You know, it's like, let the plants speak for themselves as these embodied characters. It will kind of let the story allude to what the plants can help with, so to speak. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I know if I read books that are just like, this plant does this plant does that, I can't remember it, you know. But if you tell me a story about how like sassafras got all the different kinds of leaves, because there's like 5 different shaped leaves on that tree, you know, I will remember, you know, even what they are. Like, so Susan Weed told us that story at the Southeastern Women's Herbal Conference, and it was just like, so, yeah, this idea of the story is, you know,
stories and then staying power.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, well, are there more? Because I only know this one. Where did she get that one from? Like, you know, and actually it was the second time I heard that specific one. But I haven't heard any others. So that's always been like, there must be more. That's a question for later. Maybe we'll find out one day and be able to explore that. So that would be cool. But yeah. So are we ready?
Yeah, without further ado, we will hear a story featuring Echinacea and Goldenseal. Purpurea and Angustifolia were cousins in the Echinacea family, and though they shared some family resemblances in appearance, their personalities differed. Purpurea was very outgoing, while Angustifolia was more reserved. Purpurea liked to try to be everywhere, all the time, helping people with everything, while Angustifolia, she tended to be more focused in her presence, concentrated her efforts, helping people only in moments of most need. Over time, Angustifolia had a growing feeling of being overshadowed by her cousin. Everyone knows and loves and plants gardens with Purpurea, she thought, and why wouldn't they? She's tall, full-leafed. Just look at those vibrant petals. She's like the princess of the prairie, Angustifolia sighed. Purpurea hit her growth spurt before Angustifolia, and because she had so many little slender roots to work with, she decided she would spread out and explore the territory. Angustifolia, Purpurea announced, I do believe I should go have an adventure today. The forest across the meadow. I've never been there before. She pointed. Do you fancy joining me and taking a walk in the woods, Angusti, to see what there is to see? Angustifolia entertained the notion for a moment, but then she thought to herself, I'd better not. I just have a taproot instead of many roots, so I might not be as stable as Purpurea. She's stronger than I am. I should just stay here. She looked at her cousin and feigned a tiny smile. No, you go on, dear cousin. Just tell me all about it when you do return. Be careful. Oh, Angusti, one day I do hope that you'll find your strength, stated Purpurea. Then she waved goodbye and headed towards the tree line. Purpurea wandered through the woodland, and when she came upon some leafy beds alight with dappled sun rays, she saw an interesting figure. Standing there in a small family unit was a plant she had never seen before, short-stemmed with large palmate leaves, the most dainty white flowers resembling snowflakes, and where the flowers had ended their cycle, there was, bejeweled at its heart, a small ruby-red berry cluster. "Oh my!" exclaimed Purpurea. "Aren't you the picture of loveliness? Why, you must be the princess of the forest as I am of the prairie. What is your name?" she asked. "Hydrastis canadensis, but my friends call me Goldenseal," replied the woodland gem. "Pardon my curiosity, but may I ask why you stay hidden in the forest here? It looks as though you have so much to share with the world," remarked Purpurea. "Well, looks can be deceiving sometimes," replied Goldenseal. "You just happened to catch us during bloom and fruit. It's a short season for us, really. Most of the rest of the year we look quite unremarkable in the understory. The untrained eye easily passes us by. Very unlike you, if I might say, with your bright and lovely purple crown. I'm sure you have many admirers." "I appreciate your compliment," said Purpurea, "but this just won't do. You are truly lovely. The world should know about you, too. Tell me, how do you let the world know about you?" she asked. "Actually, my family says we have to take care to stay cautious and a bit hidden," Goldenseal admitted humbly. "Why, pray tell?" queried Purpurea. "I'm told it's on account of our family secret, the gold buried in the ground. Sometimes when too many people come to know about our treasure, they get greedy, and before you know it, whole colonies of my family are dug up and lost, gone forever." "I am sorry to hear that," Purpurea apologized. "I didn't mean to be presumptuous or offend. I never knew a plant could be so coveted. You truly must be special indeed. But if it's not for your lace-like flowers or your ruby berries, then what for? What is the treasure? What is the gold of Goldenseal?" "It's in our roots," replied Goldenseal. "It takes many years for us to grow our roots big and strong enough to share the treasure, but once we're able, we like to focus and help people when they're under the weather." Focus and help when needed most, Purpurea thought to herself. "Why, that reminds me of Angustifolia." And suddenly Purpurea started feeling homesick. "Goldie, sometime if you ever decide to go out for an adventure, you should come visit the prairie and meet my dear cousin Angustifolia. I believe you two would find some common ground. Now, if you'll excuse me, I really ought to be getting home before dark," stated Purpurea. "Thank you for sharing with me." The new friends bid each other farewell, and Purpurea headed back to the meadow. Angustifolia was waiting up for her, eager to hear of her cousin's discoveries. "Angusti, I made a new friend, and I learned a botanical secret," Purpurea exclaimed. "You must know that just because you don't have roots like mine doesn't mean you aren't born to shine." Puzzled, Angustifolia just looked at Purpurea. "What I mean, dear cousin, is that all this time you've doubted your strength because you're different from me, but I believe your real strength is in your difference. It's in your strong taproot. That's your buried treasure. It's in your ability to focus when needed most," Purpurea explained. "In my roots?" Angustifolia pondered. "Yes, indeed," replied Purpurea. "Though it may take longer to gather your strength, that doesn't mean you don't have gifts to share with the world. I believe in you, Angusti." Purpurea cheered her cousin on. Angustifolia was overjoyed to hear her cousin's support and to be empowered by this new information about herself. Together, Purpurea and Angustifolia grew to make a good team. By and by, a couple years passed. Angustifolia's roots did in fact grow stronger, and she began to go on excursions with Purpurea. One day, when out for a stroll, they caught sight of someone tiptoeing out of the forest. "Goldie, is that you?" called Purpurea. "Hello, old friend," answered Goldenseal. "Oh, you finally made it out for a visit. It's good to see you again. Let me introduce you to my cousin, Angustifolia." Purpurea gestured. Angustifolia and Goldenseal nodded a friendly nod towards one another, each admiring the other's roots. "Goldie, since you trekked all the way out here, I insist you join us for afternoon tea," Purpurea gestured. "That sounds delightful. Count me in," replied Goldenseal. I think this could be the start of a wonderful partnership, Angustifolia observed. And in truth it was. For even though each of the friends had their own gifts to share with the world, they realized that together their greatest strength amplified to help others in need of bolstering their own. The end.
Yay! So, yeah, that was really good. You sent me a little bit of the text beforehand. And it brings up, like, I think it illustrates like the, you know, how you use these plants and some of the differences, you know, without.
That was actually the first one I wrote when I started the story project a couple years ago. And it's because I always found it fascinating when I learned the primary differences between the two Echinacea varieties in terms of when there was actually national health, I think it was the NIH, the National Institute of Health, had put out some grant money some years ago to basically be like, look, there's all this Echinacea in the market and people make all these claims about Echinacea. What is really working? You know, what does what? And it was actually
So the guy at
Herbs in Brevard, North Carolina, that had gotten some of the money to do some of the research, because they have an amazing facility that would enable them to do, you know, that level of research. And so they tested all the different parts of the two varieties and to what the different constituent levels were in different parts of each plant. And they found that even though both have value, certain portions of the purpurea were better used, say, preventively, versus other portions of Angustifolia were better used in acute scenarios. And that just fascinated me that, you know, it's like the intricacy of what plants can do for us, you know, and that looks can be deceiving because, like, just because they might look similar doesn't mean you would, you know, use the same parts, use them the same way. They're not even the same plant, you know, to the untrained eye. That could even fool people. So I thought that was a really good place to start. And the two together, honestly, it was a little bit cathartic for me to write the story about those two herbs for children, because anybody who's familiar knows that those two herbs tend to be bitter. And they're the two herbs that clear memories of my own childhood, my mom giving to me.
Me too.
I couldn't stand it. So it's like orange juice kind of was like the best way you could get it down. And even then it was like, oh my God.
Straight on. Undiluted echinacea.
Sorry.
Straight on undiluted echinacea life.
Oh yeah.
Your tongue goes numb, and it's one of those herbs that you don't want to take first when you're first like taking herbs, because it's really like, even diluted, it's whoa. And then you taste it after. It's just quite, it's got quite a kick, and you know you want that. It's how you know it's good stuff. But I like it. I feel like I was able to identify with both plants and the personalities, and I probably feel like I identify more with Angustifolia. I would hazard to say that you would maybe identify with Propecia, because you know, like, I'm always like slow and almost glacially sometimes, you know, but I've got like stuff to offer, but it's I don't know, I felt like I identified with that plant more, and I like that idea, so I can imagine like maybe kids doing that.
Yeah, that's nice to hear, because I was hoping to make it enough that outside of sort of subliminally illustrating the values of the plants, that each story is also going to have like a good lesson included in it, in terms of you know, respecting different personalities and that, and highlighting, you know, what, you know, how to constructively handle different things. Like, you know, there's going to be a story that helps in terms of dealing with sadness, and a story that helps when dealing with anger, and different things that can be tricky for kids to process, because they're just learning. And I'm hoping these stories will illustrate an outlet to show how it's okay, like how to constructively handle it. So in this case, you're looking at respecting people's differences and realizing that everybody has something to contribute.
But also, like, usually the more flashy personalities get all the attention, right? And the quieter ones, don't. They're often like sort of like, they go under the radar. They're not noticed, but they don't have anything less to offer.
Right.
Like, they're just different.
It's a good introvert extrovert sort of little bit of an analogy there too.
Great. And also, like, the value, like, because one personality is valued more, and that's hard when you're like, I'm cool too, I don't know, like and you sort of yes.
What about me?
They're like, you're so quiet. But if you get to know me, I'm very loud. My family is from New York, so we're all very loud, and I talk a lot, and especially if you follow like my Seawolf Herbs and Tarot YouTube channel, or even now this one, like there's a reason why I have interviews for 2 hours or something like that. There's just a reason, like, and we can talk a lot. So it's just like, I'm not quiet, and I'm just not like, I don't know, I'm not taking like the glamour Instagram pictures of me in my like sexy underwear or something, right? Like, I'm just not doing that, or like, all made up or something. I'm just, so I'll be like, here's the plant I took, here's a picture of the plant that I like, or like, here's my cat.
So we should go find some Goldenseal and Echinacea to take some pictures of.
We should. And I wanted to ask you if do you know off the top of your head, like, what the different, and I could dig up some pictures and like put them on the screen, but like, when I want to edit this, but I know there's differences of each plant and how they look. Did you remember off the top of your head, like, a way maybe to identify?
The tricky thing about it is that because particularly the purpurea varieties are popular in like the gardening industry, like environmental, there's all these like spin-off cultivars now.
Okay.
You can get like white ones and ones that are like pink and sunset colors, and some of them that have like longer draping petals versus some that look more like a Gerber daisy. Like, it's because people have hybridized them and like bred them to make all these different types. But in the end, they still are all usually variants of purpurea. Angustifolia, to my knowledge, I don't know if there's any hybrid of. If there are, it's not as common. And part of the reason is because it's slower growing and a little pickier about its conditions. It's just not as common, and that's honestly why it actually was the foundational one used medicinally. I was in writing this story, I was doing a little research, from the history of the plant's use, and back in like the turn of the century, like of the late 1800s, early 1900s, when before the pharmaceutical industry was really a thing, and plants were the more common research thing for medicinal use. There's like all kinds of articles that different doctors were writing extolling the value of Angustifolia, and they I think discovered and used a lot more of it as westward expansion happened, because it grows more out there naturally, and Native Americans had such a cultural history of use of the plant. But purpurea, they kind of discovered it so fast, and they spread it all over Europe and things like that. the industry kind of switched to it because it was easy to just crank a bunch of it out. But that's actually what prompted that that sort of NIH study that I was talking about before, because since purpurea was the main one on the market, but in some cases it didn't seem to be doing anything, so there was all this backlash, negative press against echinacea.
Right.
Don't waste your money, blah, blah, blah. And so it was like, well, wait a minute here. Like, maybe we're just using the wrong part of the wrong one at the wrong time. You know, what's really going on here? But purpurea, for all intents and purposes, and I did my best to try to show this in the illustrations, purpurea is more commonly the one to look a little bit more daisy-like. Like its petals tend to be a little wider and a little less droopy looking. Like it has less of the pronounced cone shape typically. It can have the cone shape, but it's usually not as consistent with that and not as big of a cone shape as angustifolia might have. And then from what I've found, angustifolia usually might have a little bit lighter and brighter colors. I say that in terms of its natural state, but like I said, now there's been so many cultivars of purpurea, you can find them in like neon colors practically. So that's not
sort of like you know, yarrow, but the only medicinal yarrow is the white.
Right.
You know, exactly. If there's yellow or pink, you know, if you see that, then it's just ornamental. And I was wondering if it's the same thing, or did you know if it's the same thing with the?
I mean, it'll still have some of the constituents. I mean, the color of the plant is usually affected or alluding to certain like antioxidant type components that might be in it.
Okay.
Why, like in nutrition, you know, they'll be like, you should taste the rainbow, you know, like eat a rainbow of colors, because each of those predominant food color groups are offering different types of compounds. And so that, you know, I'm sure that's trickling over in application to the plants. So yeah, medicinally, I would say if you're going to grow it, try to find like the true original sort of mauvey purple colored, quote unquote, plain looking by comparison.
Yeah.
Variety. And angustifolia is honestly harder to find, but it's out there. I mean, Gaia Herbs grows both types because they use both types in their formula. Like that's what research came down to. They were like, well, if this part's better for this reason and this part for this reason, then let's just use both and combine them, and then you get everything in one, and then you don't have to worry about using the wrong one at the wrong times.
And that's what I was just going to mention, like that, you know, you'll see formulas now with both types, and you don't have to worry about it, and you just, you know, take it. I guess.
It makes it a little more comprehensive
and easier. It's just less, you know, and you don't have to get two types of echinacea, and but you know, also perhaps it's less clear to the like layperson on the differences between both types. So it's still good to know that, even if you're taking them together still.
Right.
You know, and my parents had me take Echinacea and Goldenseal together. However, when I was in herb school, I learned you shouldn't do that, and now I can't remember why, but
it's pretty.
I think
common to find them together.
Yeah, I think you've told me that we've had conversations where you can. So anyway,
I could think, and this is just off the top of my head, is that because Goldenseal is such a potent plant as far as affecting potential like viral microbial type load, and the berberine content in its roots is so strong in that sense, and might if you took a lot of it over a long period of time, it could potentially destabilize gut flora, or it's a plant that sometimes people develop allergies to, which I think is a little less common with echinacea. So the only thing, yeah, I don't know if this is the reason why.
So you can take them together, but just for like a short time.
Yeah, that's how I would treat it anyway. Is like throwing the golden seal in there makes it pack a punch, but then you're looking at more short-term sort of oomph, and
Right.
this echinacea just by itself, you could do more for long-term supportive situations.
Well, a lot of times I know that you would use echinacea in the beginning just to get that, like, right when you start feeling sick, you want to do the echinacea, and maybe you would do the echinacea and golden seal, and then maybe just taper off and do the echinacea or something.
Yeah, kind of like a echinacea bell curve.
Yeah. But you put them all together in the story because they're all used together. I'm assuming, and that's really nice. And even though it says, "Hey, we're using it together," but but it's implied, and I think that it sounds like the story has a lot of layers, and I like that, and I like that it's I like the lessons and the ideas about life and the sadness or the personalities or the other things, and I think it just adds to it, adds another dimension than just talking about the plants, which is also really good, but it just I think it adds to it a lot.
And it's be rendered digestible for children. It has to be captivating enough of a personality that they want to hear it. If it was too dry as a textbook, obviously, then it wouldn't keep a young child's interest. I kind of saw, in terms of illustrating their traits, Golden Seal was kind of like the bridge, because it does have like a showy aerial portion.
Yeah.
Not to say Angustifolia doesn't, but like Angustifolia is more potent sometimes with its root. So that's kind of where the crossover is like Golden Seal's like, no, actually, what you really want is in my root, and so then Purpurea is like, oh, okay, there's there's more than meets the eye here, and
right, it's under the surface, and and I'm like, yeah, I could relate to that, because I'm just under the surface, just I think a lot of people are anyway. Like when you first, everyone's got a lot of layers, but maybe some more than others. I don't know, but if you hear a cat, I apologize. That's my cat. Hopefully you're not hearing him meowing.
No.
This is like, ah.
Yeah. I appreciate the opportunity to share, and I'm excited to share the others. The stories are completed. The illustrations take considerably more time. So if I share any more in the near future, it might not have any images yet to go with it, but we can always just tell the stories for the listening audience anyhow, and hopefully look for them to be available out in the world to take home one day.
Yeah, that would be cool. Maybe I can find some nice like herb pictures that are,
together
pop up on, in lieu of your illustrations, or we could just wait until you have them illustrated, and we'll see. I guess we'll see how that happens. Of course, I guess if anyone's, I don't know if you're open, but if any are still looking to have anyone be interested in illustrating, I don't know if you are like, I would like to do it myself now, or
I'm just trying to keep the style consistent, but
right.
I've got almost this first one entirely illustrated in a matter of 3 days working on it, but there's 9 more stories to go, and a couple of them are a little bit longer and more detailed. And once I get to the ones that have the human characters in it, that might be a little trickier. I've always been better at drawing animals and plants. So, these are stylized. It's a kid's book, right? I'm not going for a hyper realism here. So
I think the human you had was kind of like a kind of almost like an outline figure, like a.
Yeah, so far there's just been like a silhouette. But that's in this story, it's because they aren't central to the story.
Oh, okay.
Versus there's some, with the wild child character actively in them that will have to have, a person. So we'll see how that goes. If I get too frustrated, I might be putting a call out there to be like, anybody want to draw this?
Yeah. So if anyone is interested, just keep,
put it in your brain file cabinet.
Great, exactly, because that might be happening, and so well, cool. All right.
What's next on our agenda?
Next on our agenda, so coming to the Anchor on Wednesday. Sorry, no. This episode will be up on Anchor on Wednesday, so you can listen, and also hopefully on YouTube, so you can watch. So that's the Stories for the Earth YouTube channel. And then
next Wednesday is your interview with.
Yes. So next Wednesday, coming to the Anchor, is my interview with Lori Collins Jenkins, and that's already up on the YouTube channel. So and it was awesome. There is a huge list of fantastic herbal books. So yeah. So that's coming up. The next couple. Yeah, that'll round out February.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then if anyone, we're having an herbal book chat on the 8th of March. So, if anyone is, sorry, yeah, so we're recording at the 8th of March. So, if anyone's interested in joining us, please.
Check out like your top 3 favorite plant books to discuss, and we'll all just get together in a group and talk about what they are, why we like them, why we recommend them. If there's some overlap and some people choose some of the same books, then picking 3 at least means that we have some more to draw on, even if there are some doubles. So.
Yeah. So just sign up for just join the YouTube, not the Facebook group, and there's a post about it on there, and just let me know. There's at least 2 spots left, and if that time works for you, it's going to be probably at 12, and I'd love to do it live, so we'll see, because live is fun.
Eastern,
yes, Eastern time. So oh yeah, we're on the East Coast, so all the times are Eastern. So yeah, I think that's what's coming up. Little shorter episode today, but I'd like to thank everyone for joining us, and please check out the Stories for the Earth YouTube channel, the Stories for the Earth Facebook group, and then we're on Anchor. All those links are at the bottom of the description. And you can also find me on my other YouTube channel, which is Seawool Herbs and Tarot. I have a Etsy shop, Seawool Herbs, and also on Instagram. We also have an Instagram, Stories for the Earth. And Ellen, where might what are your web contacts?
Just middlepathwellnesscenter.com. It's my little holistic wellness center business. in my little town here. Maybe a little less relevant for a broad audience, but I'm always happy to talk to people, answer questions that they might have if you call into the shop. I don't have a online store because I'm very local, small town focused, but I'm always happy to mail things should anybody need me to mail them something. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Path Nutrition and Wellness Center in Canton, North Carolina.
You also have an Instagram as well. So you can follow on Instagram and Facebook. So I think that's it.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah. Join us next week, and we will have the interview with Lori on. So that'll be real awesome. All right. Well, bye.
Have a happy day.